In a small village surrounded by dry savanna, a young girl named Rukia lived a life of hardship. She was 12 years old, and every day was a struggle. Rukia woke up before sunrise. The hut was still dark, and the air was cool. Quietly, she picked up her basket and walked barefoot to fetch water from the river. The path was long and dusty, but Rukia was used to it. As the sun rose, its soft orange light made the dry savanna glow. Birds chirped in the distance, and the world felt quiet. After fetching water, Rukia walked to the forest to collect firewood. The sun was now high, and the heat burned her skin. She carried a small bundle of sticks, her arms shaking from exhaustion. Stopping under a tree, she wiped the sweat off her face. She looked at the sticks and whispered, "I hope this is enough." That evening, Rukia returned to the river to rest. As she sat by the water, she noticed an old woman sitting on a rock nearby. Her shawl shimmered like moonlight, and her eyes were kind. The woman smiled and held out a glowing pendant. "Take this," she said gently. "It will guide you when you need it most." Rukia took the pendant and felt its warmth in her hands. When she looked up again, the woman was gone and the river was silent. That night, Rukia sat in the corner of the hut, holding the pendant close to her heart. Its soft glow lit up her face in the darkness. "I will survive this," she whispered. "One day, I will have a better life." As the moonlight streamed through cracks in the hut's walls, Rukia closed her eyes and dreamed of a future full of freedom and happiness. Rukia's life carried on as usual, but the abuse she faced at home grew harsher. Her stepmother, Zaina, often hit her over small mistakes, while her step-siblings mocked her endlessly. Yet something about the pendant gave Rukia a strange sense of strength. Every night she held it close, whispering her dreams of freedom. Little did she know her journey was just beginning. One afternoon, Rukia sat by the river after finishing her grueling chores. Her arms ached from carrying heavy water jugs, and her back was sore from being forced to scrub the floors of their hut. As she dipped her feet in the cool water, the pendant around her neck began to glow faintly, catching her attention. It felt warm, as if it was alive. Rukia held it in her hands and stared at the shimmering light. "What are you trying to tell me?" she whispered. Suddenly, she noticed something new, a path she had never seen before, leading deeper into the forest. Curiosity filled her heart, but fear held her back. Back in the village, tension was growing. The harvest had failed, and the villagers were restless. Zaina's temper flared, and her anger often landed on Rukia. One day, Zaina dragged Rukia into the hut by her arm and screamed, "You're a burden! I should have left you in the forest where you belong!" Zaina slapped her hard, sending her stumbling to the ground. "Go and fetch more firewood, now!" she commanded. Rukia ran off, clutching the pendant tightly. As tears welled in her eyes, she felt the warmth of the pendant again. It seemed to calm her, giving her the strength to keep going. Rukia wandered deeper into the forest than she ever had before. The pendant's glow guided her as if it knew the way. She followed the mysterious path until she reached a clearing. In the center stood a massive ancient tree with carvings on its bark that seemed to hum with energy. "What is this place?" Rukia whispered. She reached out to touch the carvings, and for a moment the world around her seemed to shimmer. She saw visions of people she didn't recognize, but they felt familiar. The pendant's glow grew brighter as if responding to the tree. That night, Rukia sat outside the hut, staring at the pendant. Her cheek still stung from Zaina's slap, but she could still feel the energy of the tree and the vision she had seen. For the first time, she felt that she might have a purpose, greater than her struggles. I will find out the truth, she said softly, no matter what it takes. As the stars sparkled above her, Rukia's determination grew. She knew her life would never be the same again. The days in the village grew darker for Rukia. Zaina's wrath had reached new heights, her punishments more severe. Each mistake Rukia made, no matter how small, was met with cruel words or harsh blows. Yet, through the suffering, the pendant's gentle glow reminded her to hold on. One evening, as Rukia returned from the forest with a heavy bundle of firewood, Zaina accused her of stealing from the neighbors. "You're nothing but a burden!" Zaina screamed, throwing a cooking pot at her feet. Rukia dodged, clutching the pendant beneath her tattered dress. She fled to the safety of the forest edge, tears blurring her vision. As she sat under a tall acacia tree, the pendant's glow brightened, casting long dancing shadows on the ground. It pulsed rhythmically, almost as if it were alive. A strange sensation washed over her, and Rukia felt an unspoken urgency. The pendant was trying to warn her of something. The next day, while gathering berries deep in the forest, Rukia encountered a stranger. An old man with a long walking stick and a weathered face stepped out from behind a tree. His eyes sparkled with kindness, but also with an air of mystery. "You've been chosen," he said, nodding toward her pendant. "Do you know what it means?" Rukia hesitated but shook her head. The old man smiled gently. "It is a light in the darkness, a guide for those who seek the truth. But its power is not without cost. You must be brave, child." Before Rukia could ask more, the man turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving her with more questions than answers. Returning to the village, Rukia found chaos. The villagers accused her of bringing bad luck, blaming her for the worsening drought and the failing crops. Zaina seized the moment to fan the flames of their anger. "She's cursed!" Zaina cried. "We should send her away before she ruins us all." The crowd grew restless, their voices rising like a storm. Fear gripped Rukia, but as she held the pendant, a surge of courage steadied her. She stepped forward and faced them, her voice trembling but clear. "I've done nothing wrong, stone. If you want me gone, I will leave, but I will not live in fear." The villagers fell silent, surprised by her defiance. Zaina scowled, but said nothing, her plan thwarted. That night, unable to stay in the village any longer, Rukia made a decision. With only the pendant and a small bundle of belongings, she set out into the forest, following the path the pendant seemed to illuminate. Each step away from the village felt lighter, as if she were shedding the weight of her past. As the moon rose high in the sky, Rukia came upon a clearing she had never seen before. In the center stood an ancient stone arch covered in glowing runes. The pendant pulsed warmly against her chest, as if urging her forward. Taking a deep breath, Rukia stepped through the arch, leaving her old life behind and stepping into the unknown.